The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maya Chen adjusted her vintage band t-shirt and pushed her thick-rimmed glasses up her nose, scrolling through lines of code on her triple monitor setup at NexTech Solutions. To her colleagues rushing past with their artisanal coffee and startup jargon, she was just another quirky software engineer who preferred debugging sessions to happy-hour networking events. But what none of them realized as they dismissed her quiet demeanor and unassuming appearance was that in exactly 18 hours, this unassuming woman they'd spent months overlooking would make a decision that wouldn't just save their company from complete destruction, but prevent a cyberattack that could cripple the entire Western power grid. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya's fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced precision, her mind simultaneously tracking 17 different security protocols while her coworkers assumed she was just another coder lost in the mundane world of database optimization. The irony wasn't lost on her that the same colleagues who rolled their eyes when she spoke up in meetings had no idea she'd spent 5 years operating predator drones over hostile territory, coordinating split-second life-and-death decisions, while tracking multiple targets across vast digital landscapes that made their current cybersecurity challenges look like children's puzzles. The morning stand-up meeting in Conference Room Alpha buzzed with the familiar energy of a tech company convinced of its own innovation. Maya sat quietly in the back corner, laptop open, appearing to half listen while actually monitoring network traffic patterns that had been troubling her for weeks. The anomalies were subtle, almost invisible to conventional security protocols, but her military-trained eye recognized the digital signatures of something far more sophisticated than the routine phishing attempts in script. Kiddie attacks that typically worried corporate security teams. Director Brad Thompson dominated the conversation from his position at the head of the glass conference table, his expensive sneakers and carefully cultivated startup founder aesthetic masking what Maya had long recognized as a fundamental lack of technical depth. His loud voice carried across the room as he gestured dramatically at the quarterly security metrics displayed on the wall-mounted monitor, completely oblivious to the real threats lurking beneath their supposedly robust defenses. "Look, team, I know some of you think we're being too aggressive with our security posture," Thompson announced, his tone dripping with the kind of condescension that had become his trademark during Maya's 18 months at NexTech. "But our clients trust us to protect their data using proven methodologies, not experimental approaches that might sound impressive in academic papers, but haven't been tested in real-world enterprise environments." Maya bit her tongue, recognizing the subtle dig aimed in her direction. 3 weeks earlier, she'd submitted a detailed proposal for implementing adaptive threat detection algorithms based on pattern recognition techniques she'd developed during her classified work with autonomous drone systems. The proposal had been dismissed during a brief email exchange, with Thompson suggesting she focus on her assigned tasks rather than trying to reinvent cybersecurity protocols that had been working perfectly well for years. Senior developer Jake Martinez nodded enthusiastically, his blind loyalty to Thompson's leadership style evident in every gesture. "Exactly right, Brad. We can't let ourselves get distracted by theoretical solutions when we're dealing with real business requirements and compliance standards. Our current security infrastructure has successfully protected client data for 3 consecutive years without a single major breach." Maya's laptop screen flickered with an alert that would have meant nothing to anyone else in the room, but sent ice through her veins. The traffic patterns she'd been monitoring showed a coordination level that suggested state-sponsored actors rather than typical cybercriminals. Someone with serious resources and advanced capabilities was conducting reconnaissance against NexTech's infrastructure, probing for weaknesses with the kind of methodical patience that preceded major operations. Junior developer Emma Rodriguez barely 6 months out of coding boot camp, but possessing genuine curiosity about emergent technologies, looked up from her notes with a question that revealed more technical insight than most of her senior colleagues. Demonstrated. Maya, didn't you mention something last week about anomalous network behavior in the authentication servers? Are these security metrics accounting for potential advanced persistent threats that might not trigger traditional intrusion detection systems? The question hung in the air like a challenge, creating exactly the kind of moment Maya had learned to navigate carefully during her time in corporate environments. Her military experience had taught her to communicate complex technical concepts clearly and concisely, but corporate culture seemed to reward style over substance, confidence over competence, and networking ability over actual technical expertise. "There are some interesting patterns in the logs," Maya replied carefully, choosing her words to avoid triggering Thompson's defensive reactions while still conveying the seriousness of what she'd discovered. The baseline network behavior has shifted in ways that could indicate sophisticated reconnaissance activities. Traditional signature-based detection systems might not recognize these approaches because they're designed to evade conventional security protocols. Thompson's expression shifted to the patronizing smile he reserved for junior employees who dared to suggest improvements to systems he'd personally approved. "Maya, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you have to understand that enterprise security operates on proven principles. We can't start chasing ghost threats based on minor fluctuations in log files. Our security team includes professionals with decades of experience who would have identified any serious threats immediately." The dismissal stung, but Maya had endured far worse during her military service when male colleagues assumed her technical recommendations were motivated by inexperience rather than genuine expertise. She'd learned to document everything meticulously, building ironclad cases that couldn't be dismissed through appeals to authority or institutional prejudice. Her observations about the current network anomalies were backed by detailed analysis that revealed patterns invisible to automated systems, but clearly recognizable to someone trained in adversarial thinking. Lead security engineer Tom Wilson, whose gruff demeanor and perpetual skepticism had earned him a reputation as the department's most difficult personality, finally spoke up from his position near the window. "Thompson, maybe we should let Maya present her findings to the security team. Even if it turns out to be nothing, understanding different perspectives on threat detection could be valuable for our ongoing training programs." Maya felt a surge of gratitude toward Wilson, whose abrasive personality often masked genuine technical competence and a willingness to consider evidence over politics. His support meant more than he probably realized, given his reputation for brutally honest assessments that had humbled more than one overconfident developer. But Thompson's response revealed the institutional thinking that had made Maya's corporate transition so challenging after years of military service where competence mattered more than personality conflicts or departmental politics. "Tom, I understand. You want to be thorough, but we need to maintain focus on deliverable priorities." Maya can document her observations in the standard threat assessment format, and our security team will review them according to established protocols. The meeting concluded with assignments that would keep everyone busy with routine tasks, while the sophisticated threat Maya had identified continued its methodical reconnaissance, gathering intelligence about NexTech's defenses in preparation for an attack that would test every assumption about corporate cybersecurity preparedness. Maya returned to her desk with the familiar weight of institutional dismissal settling across her shoulders like a lead blanket. The open concept workspace buzzed with the constant hum of productivity theater that defined modern tech culture, where the appearance of innovation mattered more than actual technical achievement. Developers clustered around standing desks discussing weekend hackathons and cryptocurrency investments, while completely missing the digital warfare being orchestrated against their own infrastructure. Her workstation felt like an island of genuine purpose in an ocean of performative engineering. 3 monitors displayed cascading data streams that would have overwhelmed most cybersecurity professionals, but Maya processed the information with the same systematic approach she'd once used to coordinate drone strikes across multiple theaters of operation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The patterns emerging from the network logs told a story of patient, methodical preparation that reminded her of the most sophisticated adversaries she'd faced during her classified military assignments. The reconnaissance activities had intensified significantly over the past 72 hours, with probing attempts targeting specific vulnerabilities that shouldn't have been visible to external actors. Someone with intimate knowledge of NexTech's infrastructure was feeding intelligence to attackers who possessed both advanced technical capabilities and substantial financial resources. The coordination between different attack vectors suggested a level of planning typically associated with nation-state actors rather than opportunistic cybercriminals seeking quick financial gains. Maya opened her secure communications application and began drafting a detailed technical analysis that documented every anomaly she'd identified, cross-referencing the attack patterns with classified threat intelligence from her military contacts, who still worked in cyber warfare divisions. The similarities to previous state-sponsored operations were unmistakable, from the timing of reconnaissance activities to the specific protocols being tested for vulnerabilities. Her concentration was interrupted by Jake Martinez dropping into the chair beside her workstation, his laptop balanced precariously on one knee, while he gestured enthusiastically about the new project management software Thompson had mandated for all development teams. His excitement about administrative tools that would generate more meetings and documentation requirements revealed exactly the kind of thinking that had allowed serious security threats to develop unnoticed within their supposedly secure environment. Maya, you missed the best part of Thompson's presentation about our Q3 security goals, Jake announced, apparently oblivious to the irony of discussing security objectives while actual threats actively explored their network infrastructure. We're implementing a revolutionary new approach to threat assessment that emphasizes proactive identification of potential vulnerabilities before they can be exploited by external actors. Maya glanced at her monitors, where real-time analysis showed active reconnaissance attempts targeting the exact vulnerabilities that Thompson's revolutionary approach was supposedly designed to identify proactively. The disconnect between corporate security theater and actual cybersecurity realities never ceased to amaze her, especially coming from an environment where threat identification meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. That sounds comprehensive, Maya replied diplomatically, having learned that direct challenges to institutional wisdom typically resulted in increased scrutiny rather than serious consideration of alternative perspectives. What specific methodologies are included in this proactive approach to vulnerability identification? Jake's response revealed the superficial understanding of cybersecurity principles that characterized most of their colleagues, who had learned impressive-sounding terminology without developing the technical depth necessary to recognize sophisticated threats. His explanation focused on compliance requirements and industry best practices while completely ignoring the adaptive thinking necessary to counter adversaries who specifically designed their attacks to circumvent conventional detection methods. Basically, we're going to implement a comprehensive audit framework that evaluates our security posture against established industry benchmarks. Jake continued, consulting his laptop screen to ensure he quoted Thompson's presentation accurately. The methodology emphasizes systematic documentation of existing protocols while identifying areas where our current practices might not align with evolving regulatory requirements. Maya bit back her initial response, which would have pointed out that their current practices had already been compromised by adversaries who had spent weeks studying their defensive capabilities. Instead, she focused on gathering additional evidence that might eventually convince someone in leadership to take the threat seriously, before it progressed beyond reconnaissance into active exploitation. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Emma Rodriguez, whose junior status in the company hierarchy meant she could ask questions that would seem inappropriate coming from more senior employees. The message contained a screenshot of unusual network activity that Emma had noticed while working on database optimization tasks, along with a question about whether the patterns might indicate something more serious than routine maintenance activities. Maya's pulse quickened as she examined Emma's screenshot, recognizing immediately that the junior developer had identified another piece of the sophisticated attack preparation that had been developing over the past several weeks. The fact that someone with minimal cybersecurity training had noticed anomalies that their dedicated security team had completely missed spoke volumes about either the team's competence or their willingness to investigate anything that might challenge their comfortable assumptions about threat levels. She walked over to Emma's workstation, noting the way other developers seemed to dismiss the young woman's technical observations with the same casual disregard they showed toward Maya's security concerns. The pattern was depressingly familiar from her military experience, where valuable intelligence was sometimes ignored because it came from sources that didn't fit institutional expectations about expertise and authority. "Show me exactly what you noticed in the database logs," Maya said, pulling up a chair beside Emma's desk while keeping her voice low enough to avoid attracting attention from colleagues who might dismiss their conversation as junior-level technical confusion. Emma's analysis was surprisingly sophisticated for someone with her limited experience, revealing an intuitive understanding of data patterns that most senior developers never developed despite years of professional training. Her observations about unusual query patterns and access attempts showed exactly the kind of detailed attention that effective cybersecurity required, but rarely received in corporate environments focused on feature development and deployment schedules. "These database queries are happening during off-peak hours, but they're not following any of our standard automated processes," Emma explained, highlighting specific log entries that showed systematic exploration of table structures and access permissions. "Someone is mapping our entire database architecture, including tables that should only be accessible through elevated security credentials." Maya felt the familiar chill that accompanied recognition of sophisticated adversarial activities. The database reconnaissance that Emma had discovered represented a critical escalation in the attack preparation, indicating that the adversaries had progressed beyond external network probing into actual system penetration. The methodical approach to data mapping suggested they were preparing for comprehensive data extraction rather than simple disruption activities. "Have you shared these observations with the security team?" Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer, based on Emma's hesitant expression. "I tried to bring it up during yesterday's team stand-up, but Wilson said database optimization always generates unusual query patterns, and I shouldn't worry about log entries that fall within normal operational parameters," Emma replied, her disappointment evident despite her attempts to maintain professional composure. Maya recognized the institutional pattern of dismissing legitimate security concerns through appeals to experience and established procedures, even when those procedures were clearly inadequate for detecting sophisticated threats. Wilson's response revealed the dangerous combination of overconfidence and complacency that had allowed the current situation to develop undetected for so long. The conversation was interrupted by Thompson's voice booming across the open workspace as he announced an impromptu all-hands meeting to discuss the exciting opportunities presented by their newest government contract. His enthusiasm about landing a major cybersecurity consulting agreement with the Department of Energy seemed particularly ironic, given that their own infrastructure was actively being compromised by adversaries who had apparently identified exactly the kind of vulnerabilities that government agencies were paying them to prevent. Maya exchanged a meaningful glance with Emma as they joined the crowd gathering around Thompson's presentation area, both recognizing that the timing of this contract announcement created additional pressure to maintain the illusion of robust security capabilities while actual threats continued to develop unchallenged within their network. Thompson's presentation focused on the prestigious nature of their new client relationship and the substantial revenue opportunities that would result from expanding their government consulting practice. His description of NexTech's cutting-edge cybersecurity capabilities and proven track record of protecting critical infrastructure seemed to exist in an alternate reality, where sophisticated adversaries weren't actively preparing to demonstrate exactly how inadequate their current defensive measures actually were. This contract represents validation of our security expertise by the most demanding clients in the industry, Thompson declared, gesturing enthusiastically at slides showing projected revenue growth and market expansion opportunities. The Department of Energy specifically selected NexTech because of our innovative approaches to threat detection and our comprehensive understanding of advanced persistent threat mitigation strategies. Maya felt physically ill listening to Thompson promise capabilities that their current security infrastructure couldn't possibly deliver, especially with active adversaries who had already penetrated their defenses and were systematically mapping their most sensitive data repositories. The disconnect between corporate marketing presentations and actual technical realities had never seemed more dangerous or more complete. The irony deepened as Thompson began describing specific security services they would provide to protect critical energy infrastructure from exactly the kind of sophisticated cyberattacks that were currently being prepared against their own network. His confident assertions about their ability to detect and counter advanced threats while those same threats operated undetected within their own systems created a cognitive dissonance that Maya found almost unbearable. As the presentation concluded and employees returned to their workstations with renewed enthusiasm about their company's cybersecurity leadership, Maya realized that institutional pride and financial incentives had created a situation where acknowledging serious security vulnerabilities would be seen as undermining the company's most important business opportunity, rather than protecting it from catastrophic failure. Maya Chen had never intended to become someone who challenged authority or disrupted established systems. Growing up in a modest 3-bedroom house in suburban Sacramento, she'd been the quiet middle child who preferred dismantling electronics in the garage to participating in the social dynamics that seemed to consume her older sister and younger brother. While her siblings excelled at activities that drew parental attention and community recognition, Maya found satisfaction in understanding how complex systems functioned and discovering ways to make them work more efficiently. Her fascination with technology began during elementary school, when their family's ancient desktop computer started experiencing mysterious crashes that frustrated her parents and siblings, but intrigued Maya beyond measure. She spent countless afternoons in the cramped home office, methodically testing different software configurations and hardware combinations, until she identified the memory conflict that had been causing the system failures. The sense of accomplishment she felt when the computer finally operated reliably was unlike anything she'd experienced through traditional academic achievements or extracurricular activities. Maya's parents, both working multiple jobs to maintain their modest middle-class lifestyle, appreciated their daughter's technical aptitude primarily for its practical benefits, rather than recognizing it as exceptional talent that deserved special cultivation. When their ancient washing machine developed electrical problems that would have required expensive professional repair, 12-year-old Maya spent an entire weekend studying wiring diagrams and troubleshooting procedures until she identified the faulty relay switch that was causing the intermittent malfunctions. Her methodical approach to problem solving extended beyond mechanical repairs into academic pursuits, where she consistently achieved perfect scores in mathematics and science courses. while struggling with subjects that required social interpretation rather than logical analysis. Teachers appreciated her reliable performance and quiet classroom behavior, but rarely recognized the depth of analytical thinking that enabled her to understand complex concepts that challenged most of her classmates. High school introduced Maya to programming through an elective computer science course taught by Mr. Patterson, a former software engineer who had retired from corporate life to pursue education. Unlike her other teachers, Patterson immediately recognized that Maya's technical intuition exceeded anything that could be developed through standard curriculum requirements. He began providing her with advanced programming challenges that pushed her beyond basic syntax memorization into genuine software architecture and algorithm development. Under Patterson's mentorship, Maya discovered that programming languages were simply tools for expressing logical thinking in ways that machines could execute efficiently. She developed an instinctive understanding of how different programming paradigms could be combined to solve complex problems, often creating elegant solutions that accomplished in 50 lines of code what her classmates required hundreds of lines to achieve less effectively. Her breakthrough moment came during her junior year when the school district's network infrastructure began experiencing performance issues that were affecting online learning platforms across multiple campuses. The technology department had spent weeks working with expensive consultants who couldn't identify the source of the intermittent slowdowns that were disrupting classes and frustrating both teachers and students throughout the district. Maya spent her lunch periods for 3 weeks analyzing network traffic patterns from the computer lab, using techniques she'd learned from online cybersecurity courses that went far beyond anything covered in standard high school curriculum. Her investigation revealed that the performance issues were caused by a poorly configured load balancing system that was creating bottlenecks during peak usage periods when multiple schools were accessing shared resources simultaneously. The solution she proposed involved reconfiguring the network architecture to distribute traffic more efficiently while implementing catching mechanisms that would reduce bandwidth requirements during high-demand periods. Her detailed technical proposal impressed not only Mr. Patterson, but also the district's technology director, who had been struggling to justify the budget for expensive infrastructure upgrades that Maya's approach made unnecessary. Implementing her recommendations required convincing veteran network administrators to modify systems they'd been managing successfully for years, a process that taught Maya her first lessons about institutional resistance to change, even when that change offered clear benefits. The administrators initially dismissed her proposals as theoretical concepts developed by someone who lacked practical experience with enterprise network management, but Patterson's advocacy and the technology director's support eventually enabled her solutions to be tested in a controlled environment. The results exceeded everyone's expectations, with network performance improving by over 60% while reducing operational costs through more efficient resource utilization. Maya's innovative approach to load balancing became the template for district-wide infrastructure improvements that saved taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars while providing students and teachers with dramatically improved online learning capabilities. The recognition Maya received for solving the district's network problems opened doors to advanced placement courses and early admission opportunities that she'd never previously considered. Her guidance counselor began discussing college programs that could develop her technical talents into career opportunities, introducing her to scholarship possibilities and university departments that specialized in cybersecurity and computer engineering. But Maya's path toward higher education was complicated by financial realities that made traditional 4-year university programs challenging for her family to afford. Despite her academic achievements and technical accomplishments, the scholarships available to her would still require substantial family contributions that would create hardship for parents who were already working multiple jobs to support 3 children with different educational and career aspirations. The solution came from an unexpected source when a military recruiter visited her high school during a career fair that Maya had initially planned to skip. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez, herself a former cybersecurity specialist who had transitioned into recruitment, recognized immediately that Maya possessed exactly the kind of analytical thinking and technical aptitude that military cyber warfare units desperately needed to address emerging threats from sophisticated adversaries. Rodriguez explained that military service would provide Maya with access to advanced training in cybersecurity and drone operations that wasn't available through civilian educational programs, while also offering financial benefits that would enable her to pursue further education without creating debt burdens for her family. The opportunity to work with cutting-edge technology while serving her country appealed to Maya's sense of purpose in ways that traditional corporate career paths had never managed to achieve. The decision to enlist required careful consideration of alternatives that included accepting partial scholarships to state universities where she would have studied computer science through conventional academic programs. But the military offered something that civilian education couldn't provide: access to classified technologies and real-world operational experience that would develop her technical capabilities far beyond anything possible in standard university laboratory environments. Maya's parents initially expressed concerns about their daughter choosing military service over traditional higher education, worried that she might be sacrificing long-term career opportunities for short-term financial benefits. But Maya understood that the technical training and security clearances she would obtain through military service would actually create career advantages that conventional education couldn't match, especially in the rapidly evolving field of cybersecurity, where practical experience mattered more than academic credentials. Her enlistment process revealed additional dimensions of her analytical capabilities that impressed military assessors who specialized in identifying candidates for advanced technical training programs. Maya's performance on aptitude tests and technical evaluations placed her in the top percentile of incoming recruits, qualifying her for specialized training in drone operations and cyber warfare that was typically reserved for candidates with years of prior military experience. The transition from suburban high school to military basic training challenged Maya in ways that academic coursework had never required, forcing her to develop physical fitness and social cooperation skills while maintaining the technical focus that had defined her identity throughout adolescence. The regimented environment and constant evaluation initially felt oppressive to someone accustomed to independent study and self-directed learning, but Maya gradually recognized that military discipline was teaching her valuable lessons about teamwork and communication under pressure. Her technical training began at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, where she joined a selective program that combined cybersecurity education with drone operation certification in ways that prepared specialists for the complex intersection of technological warfare and information security. The curriculum included classified material about adversarial tactics and defensive strategies that provided Maya with comprehensive understanding of how sophisticated attacks were planned and executed by professional military units. The instructors, who recognized Maya's exceptional technical intuition, began providing her with additional challenges that went beyond standard training requirements, enabling her to develop expertise in areas like autonomous system programming and advanced threat detection that would prove invaluable during her subsequent operational assignments. Her ability to understand complex technical concepts quickly while maintaining attention to detail under pressure made her an ideal candidate for the most demanding cybersecurity and drone operation missions. Maya's first operational assignment took her to a classified facility where she worked with teams that monitored and responded to cyber threats against critical infrastructure, gaining first-hand experience with the kind of sophisticated attacks that corporate security teams rarely encountered. The work required combining technical analysis with strategic thinking in ways that developed her understanding of how individual security decisions could have far-reaching consequences for national security and civilian safety. Her expertise in drone operations evolved through assignments that required coordinating multiple autonomous systems while processing vast amounts of intelligence data in real-time environments where mistakes could have catastrophic consequences. Maya learned to make split-second decisions based on incomplete information while maintaining situational awareness across multiple operational theaters, skills that would later prove invaluable when she faced corporate crises that required innovative solutions under extreme time pressure. Maya's defining moment in military service came during Operation Digital Shield, a classified mission that tested every aspect of her technical training while establishing her reputation as an innovative problem solver capable of achieving objectives that conventional approaches couldn't accomplish. The operation began when intelligence agencies identified a sophisticated cyber warfare campaign targeting American power grid infrastructure, with initial reconnaissance suggesting that foreign adversaries had developed new attack vectors that bypassed existing defensive protocols. The enemy's approach combined traditional network infiltration techniques with drone-delivered electromagnetic pulse devices that could disable critical control systems without triggering standard intrusion detection systems. This hybrid strategy represented an evolution in warfare that required defenders to think beyond conventional cybersecurity paradigms, integrating physical security measures with digital defense systems in ways that most military units weren't prepared to implement effectively. Maya was assigned to a joint task force that included cybersecurity specialists, drone operators, and intelligence analysts who had been tasked with developing countermeasures against this emerging threat. Her unique combination of skills in both cyber warfare and autonomous systems made her an ideal candidate for coordinating the complex defensive operations that would be required to protect vulnerable infrastructure across multiple geographic regions. The initial challenge involved identifying attack patterns that spanned both digital and physical domains, requiring analysis techniques that could correlate network traffic anomalies with geographic intelligence about potential drone deployment locations. Maya developed new analytical frameworks that processed multiple data streams simultaneously, enabling her team to recognize coordinated attacks that would have appeared unrelated when examined through traditional cybersecurity or counterintelligence methodologies. Her breakthrough innovation was the creation of adaptive response protocols that could automatically coordinate cyber defenses with counter-drone operations, enabling real-time responses to hybrid attacks without requiring manual coordination between different military units. The system Maya designed could detect network intrusion attempts while simultaneously deploying defensive drones to neutralize electromagnetic pulse devices before they could disable critical infrastructure. The technical complexity of integrating these different defensive systems required Maya to work directly with classified technologies that push the boundaries of both artificial intelligence and autonomous systems coordination. She spent 18-hour days writing code that combined machine learning algorithms with tactical response protocols, creating software that could make strategic decisions faster and more accurately than human operators under combat conditions. Testing her defensive systems required simulated attacks that replicated the sophistication of actual enemy operations, with military red teams attempting to penetrate protected infrastructure using the same hybrid techniques that had been identified. Through intelligence gathering, Maya's protocols successfully defended against 96% of simulated attacks during initial testing phases, dramatically exceeding the performance benchmarks that had been established for conventional defensive systems. But the true test came when intelligence agencies detected preparations for an actual attack against the electrical grid serving the Pacific Northwest, with satellite imagery confirming that enemy forces had positioned drone assets capable of delivering electromagnetic pulse devices to critical transmission facilities. The attack timeline suggested that enemy operatives planned to coordinate their digital infiltration efforts with physical strikes that would create cascading failures across the entire regional power network. Maya found herself at the center of the defensive response, coordinating cyber warfare units with counter-drone teams, while processing real-time intelligence about enemy movements and attack preparations. The pressure was unlike anything she'd experienced during training exercises, with the knowledge that millions of civilians could lose electrical power if her defensive protocols failed to counter the sophisticated attack that was already in progress. The enemy's initial digital probes began precisely at midnight, with network infiltration attempts targeting supervisory control and data acquisition systems that managed power distribution across 3 states. Maya's cybersecurity algorithms detected the intrusion attempts within seconds, automatically implementing countermeasures that isolated compromised systems while maintaining power grid stability through backup control mechanisms. Simultaneously, her radar systems identified incoming drone formations approaching critical transmission facilities from multiple directions, confirming that the hybrid attack was proceeding according to enemy operational plans. Maya activated her counter-drone protocols, deploying defensive autonomous systems that used electronic warfare techniques to disrupt enemy drone navigation, while physical interceptors moved to destroy electromagnetic pulse devices before they could reach their targets. The coordination required to manage both digital and physical defenses simultaneously pushed Maya's technical capabilities and decision-making skills to their absolute limits. She monitored dozens of different data streams while making tactical adjustments to defensive protocols in real time, ensuring that cyber defenses remained effective while counter-drone operations eliminated physical threats without creating collateral damage to civilian infrastructure. Her most critical decision came when enemy forces attempted to overwhelm her defensive systems by launching coordinated attacks against multiple targets simultaneously, forcing her to prioritize protection for the most critical infrastructure while accepting calculated risks for less essential facilities. Maya's analysis of power grid dependencies enabled her to identify which transmission facilities were absolutely essential for maintaining regional electrical service, allowing her to concentrate her defensive resources where they would have maximum strategic impact. The battle lasted for 6 hours, with enemy forces adapting their tactics in real time, as Maya's defensive systems countered each wave of attacks with increasingly sophisticated countermeasures. Her protocols successfully prevented 94% of attempted intrusions, while destroying 87% of incoming electromagnetic pulse devices, maintaining power grid stability throughout the Pacific Northwest despite sustained assault from adversaries using cutting-edge hybrid warfare techniques. The strategic impact of Operation Digital Shield extended far beyond the immediate defensive success, establishing new paradigms for cybersecurity that influenced military doctrine and civilian infrastructure protection strategies. Maya's innovative integration of cyber warfare and counter-drone operations became the template for defensive systems deployed to protect critical infrastructure across the United States, with her protocols adapted for use by both military units and civilian security agencies. Her technical achievements during the operation earned her commendations from senior military leadership and intelligence agencies, with classified performance evaluations describing her work as revolutionary contributions to national security. Capabilities. The software systems she'd developed were classified at the highest levels and became foundational elements of America's cyber warfare defensive strategy, protecting infrastructure that millions of civilians depended on daily. But perhaps more importantly for Maya's personal development, Operation Digital Shield proved that her technical intuition and analytical capabilities could achieve results under pressure that exceeded anything possible through conventional military approaches. She'd successfully coordinated complex operations involving multiple specialized units while developing innovative solutions to unprecedented tactical challenges, demonstrating leadership capabilities that transcended traditional technical expertise. The recognition she received from senior leadership opened opportunities for advanced training and specialized assignments that would have been unavailable to junior personnel without demonstrated operational success. Maya was invited to participate in classified research programs that were developing next-generation cyber warfare capabilities, working with technologies that were years ahead of anything available in civilian markets. Her expertise expanded to include artificial intelligence applications for autonomous systems coordination, advanced persistent threat detection and mitigation strategies, and hybrid warfare countermeasures that address the evolving nature of modern military conflicts. Maya became one of the military's leading experts in technologies that combine cybersecurity with autonomous systems, developing capabilities that would prove invaluable when she eventually transitioned to civilian career opportunities. The leadership skills she developed through coordinating complex military operations taught Maya how to communicate technical concepts clearly to non-technical decision-makers while building consensus around innovative approaches that challenged established procedures. She learned to navigate institutional resistance to change while maintaining focus on objectives that served broader strategic purposes, skills that would become essential during her subsequent corporate career. Maya's military service concluded with additional commendations for technical innovation and operational leadership, along with security clearances and specialized certifications that made her an attractive candidate for corporate cybersecurity positions. Her transition planning included careful consideration of how her classified technical expertise could be applied to civilian infrastructure protection without compromising national security interests or violating security protocols. The job search process revealed that corporate cybersecurity roles rarely required the kind of advanced technical capabilities that Maya had developed through military service, with most positions focusing on compliance management and routine threat detection rather than innovative defense against sophisticated adversaries. She found herself overqualified for entry-level cybersecurity positions, while lacking the corporate experience and business relationships that senior roles typically required. NexTech Solutions offered Maya an opportunity that seemed to bridge the gap between her advanced technical capabilities and corporate career development, with a senior software engineer position that included cybersecurity responsibilities and potential for advancement based on performance rather than corporate networking abilities. The company's government contracting work suggested that her security clearances and classified experience would be valued, even if her specific technical innovations couldn't be discussed in detail. Maya's decision to accept the NexTech position represented a calculated compromise between utilizing her advanced technical skills and adapting to corporate culture that operated according to different priorities and communication styles than military organizations. She understood that proving herself in civilian cybersecurity would require patience and diplomatic skill in addition to technical competence, especially as a young woman entering a field dominated by men who might question her qualifications or authority. The 18 months Maya had spent at NexTech Solutions had been a masterclass in corporate adaptation that tested every lesson she'd learned about institutional navigation during her military service. Her technical contributions to the company's cybersecurity infrastructure had been substantial but largely invisible, implemented through careful collaboration with existing teams rather than dramatic demonstrations of her advanced capabilities. She'd learned to translate military-grade threat detection methodologies into corporate-friendly terminology that wouldn't trigger questions about classified experience or draw unwanted attention to her unconventional background. Maya's reputation within NexTech had been built through consistent delivery of innovative solutions that solved complex technical problems while appearing to emerge naturally from collaborative team efforts. Her colleagues recognized her as someone who could reliably identify root causes of system failures and develop elegant fixes. But few understood that her diagnostic capabilities stemmed from training in adversarial thinking that went far beyond standard corporate cybersecurity education. The network monitoring systems Maya had quietly implemented throughout NexTech's infrastructure represented significant advances over the company's previous security protocols. Utilizing pattern recognition algorithms she'd adapted from military applications to detect sophisticated threats that conventional signature-based systems would miss entirely. Her innovations had prevented dozens of attempted intrusions during her tenure, though the prevented attacks were rarely dramatic enough to generate executive attention or recognition from senior leadership. Her approach to cybersecurity emphasized proactive threat hunting rather than reactive incident response, using behavioral analysis techniques that could identify adversarial activities during reconnaissance phases before actual exploitation attempts began. Maya had developed custom monitoring tools that analyzed network traffic patterns, user behavior anomalies, and system resource utilization in ways that created comprehensive situational awareness across NexTech's entire digital infrastructure. The artificial intelligence components Maya had integrated into NexTech's security architecture drew from machine learning research she'd conducted during classified military projects, adapted for corporate environments through careful removal of any technologies or techniques that might compromise operational security. Her algorithms could process vast amounts of security data simultaneously while identifying subtle correlations that human analysts would miss, enabling automated responses to emerging threats that saved critical response time during active incidents. But Maya's most significant contribution to NexTech's cybersecurity capabilities was the development of what she privately called adaptive defense networks, sophisticated systems that could dynamically reconfigure security protocols based on evolving threat landscapes without requiring manual intervention from security personnel. These networks used autonomous decision-making capabilities to implement countermeasures against novel attack vectors, while learning from each interaction to improve future defensive responses. The technical complexity of Maya's security innovations meant that few of her colleagues fully understood how the systems functioned, leading to situations where her contributions were attributed to team efforts or existing vendor solutions rather than her individual technical expertise. She'd learned to accept this invisibility as a necessary trade-off for implementing advanced security measures without drawing scrutiny that might compromise her ability to protect the company's infrastructure effectively. Maya's understanding of NexTech's digital environment extended far beyond standard network topology into comprehensive knowledge of how business processes, user behaviors, and system dependencies created potential attack surfaces that sophisticated adversaries could exploit. She'd spent months mapping the relationships between different components of the company's infrastructure, identifying critical vulnerabilities that weren't apparent through conventional security assessments. Her analysis had revealed that NexTech's rapid growth and aggressive expansion into government contracting had created security gaps that resulted from integrating new systems without adequate consideration of how those additions affected overall defensive posture. Legacy authentication protocols, inconsistent access controls, and poorly documented system interfaces had created opportunities for persistent adversaries to establish footholds within the network that could remain undetected for extended periods. The sophisticated threat Maya had been tracking represented exactly the kind of advanced persistent threat that her military training had prepared her to recognize and counter. But corporate decision-making processes weren't designed to respond quickly to subtle indicators that required specialized expertise to interpret correctly. Her attempts to communicate the seriousness of the situation had been hampered by institutional resistance to acknowledging vulnerabilities that might impact business operations or client relationships. Maya's frustration with corporate cybersecurity. Culture stemmed from fundamental differences between military and business approaches to risk assessment and threat response. Military organizations prioritized mission accomplishment and personnel safety over bureaucratic procedures, enabling rapid adaptation to emerging threats through streamlined decision-making processes that empowered technical experts to implement necessary countermeasures without extensive approval hierarchies. Corporate environments, by contrast, emphasized consensus building and risk mitigation through established procedures that often prevented innovative responses to novel threats. Maya had watched sophisticated adversaries exploit this institutional inertia repeatedly, taking advantage of corporate reluctance to disrupt normal business operations even when those operations were actively being compromised by ongoing cyberattacks. The technical evidence Maya had documented about the current threat would have triggered immediate response protocols in any military organization, with specialized units deployed to counter adversarial activities before they could progress from reconnaissance into active exploitation. But NexTech security team had been trained to focus on compliance requirements and routine incident response rather than proactive threat hunting against sophisticated nation-state actors. Maya's private investigation into the network anomalies had revealed coordination patterns that suggested the involvement of Advanced Persistent Threat Group 41, a state-sponsored cyber warfare unit known for conducting long-term intelligence gathering operations against Western technology companies with government contracts. The group's previous operations had resulted in the theft of classified technical specifications and sensitive business intelligence that had been used to undermine American competitive advantages in international markets. The specific techniques being employed against NexTech's infrastructure matched a PT-41's established operational patterns, including the use of custom malware designed to evade detection by commercial security tools and the patient reconnaissance methodology that characterized their most successful operations. Maya's analysis indicated that the group had been conducting surveillance of NexTech's network for at least 6 weeks, systematically mapping system architectures and user access patterns in preparation for a major intelligence extraction operation. The timing of the reconnaissance activities coincided with NexTech's announcement of their Department of Energy contract, suggesting that the adversaries were specifically interested in gaining access to information related to critical infrastructure protection methodologies that the company would be developing for government clients. The potential national security implications of a successful breach extended far beyond corporate financial losses into compromised defensive capabilities that could affect millions of civilians. Maya's attempts to escalate her concerns through normal corporate channels had been frustrated by leadership attitudes that prioritized maintaining client confidence over acknowledging security vulnerabilities that might require disruptive remediation efforts. Thompson's dismissal of her threat assessments reflected institutional thinking that valued stability and predictability over adaptive responses to evolving adversarial capabilities. The disconnect between Maya's technical expertise and corporate decision-making authority had created a situation where someone with classified knowledge of advanced cyber warfare techniques was unable to implement defensive measures against threats she could clearly identify and counter. Her security clearances and military training made her uniquely qualified to address the current situation, but corporate hierarchies prevented her from accessing the resources and authority necessary to protect the company effectively. Maya's analysis of potential response strategies had identified several approaches that could neutralize the current threat while strengthening NexTech's overall security posture against future attacks. Her recommendations included immediate implementation of advanced threat detection protocols, systematic hardening of vulnerable network segments, and coordination with federal cybersecurity agencies that specialized in countering nation-state adversaries. But implementing these countermeasures would require executive approval for security expenditures and operational changes that Thompson and other senior leaders seemed reluctant to authorize without clear evidence of imminent threats. The challenge Maya faced was that providing definitive proof of sophisticated cyber attacks often required allowing those attacks to progress beyond reconnaissance into active exploitation, creating unacceptable risks for both corporate assets and national security interests. The moral complexity of Maya's situation was compounded by her understanding that NexTech's government contracting work created responsibilities that extended beyond normal corporate cybersecurity requirements. The company's access to classified information and critical infrastructure protection methodologies meant that successful enemy penetration could compromise national security capabilities that millions of Americans depended on for their safety and economic security. Maya's military oath and security clearances created ethical obligations transcended corporate employment relationships, requiring her to protect national security interests, even when doing so might conflict with corporate policies or career advancement opportunities. Her technical expertise and unique understanding of the current threat made her possibly the only person at NexTech capable of implementing effective countermeasures against a PT-41's ongoing operation. The decision Maya faced was whether to continue working within corporate approval processes that seemed unlikely to produce timely responses to the emerging threat, or to take independent action that might violate company policies while protecting both NexTech and broader national security interests. Her military experience had taught her that effective leadership sometimes required exceeding formal authority to accomplish essential missions, but corporate environments operated according to different principles that emphasized procedural compliance over mission accomplishment. Maya's reflection on her military service reminded her of situations where innovative thinking and decisive action had prevented catastrophic failures that conventional approaches couldn't address effectively. Her success during Operation Digital Shield had resulted from willingness to exceed established procedures when circumstances demanded creative solutions to unprecedented challenges, demonstrating that technical expertise combined with moral courage could achieve objectives that institutional thinking deemed impossible. The parallel between her current corporate situation and previous military challenges was unmistakable, with sophisticated adversaries exploiting institutional weaknesses while decision-makers focused on maintaining organizational stability rather than addressing evolving threats. Maya's unique combination of technical capabilities and operational experience positioned her to recognize both the seriousness of the current situation and potential solutions that others couldn't see or wouldn't consider. As Maya sat at her workstation watching real-time displays of ongoing reconnaissance activities that her colleagues remained oblivious to, she understood that the next few hours would determine whether NexTech survived as a viable company and whether critical national security information remained protected from foreign adversaries. The weight of that responsibility, combined with her frustration at institutional barriers that prevented effective response, crystallized her determination to take whatever action was necessary to protect both her colleagues and her country. The decision she was contemplating would require drawing on every aspect of her technical training and operational experience, while risking her corporate career and potentially her security clearances. But Maya had learned during military service that some situations demanded personal sacrifice to serve larger purposes, and the current threat represented exactly the kind of challenge that her unique qualifications had prepared her to address. Maya's fingers moved across her keyboard with increasing urgency as she began implementing unauthorized security protocols that would either save NexTech from catastrophic compromise or end her civilian career in corporate cybersecurity. Either way, she was determined to ensure that sophisticated adversaries didn't achieve objectives that could undermine American technological advantages and critical infrastructure protection capabilities that protected millions of innocent civilians. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.